Islamic fundamentalism is a complex and often contentious topic that requires a nuanced examination. It encompasses a diverse range of beliefs and practices within the Muslim world. This review aims to provide an in-depth exploration of Islamic fundamentalism, its historical context, ideological underpinnings, socio-political implications, and the challenges it poses to global stability.
Before we dive in, if you find this content valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. It truly helps us grow. Now, let's get started.
Historical roots. Islamic fundamentalism's historical roots delve into the 18th and 19th centuries, a tumultuous period marked by profound socio-political transformations within Muslim societies. The intrusion of colonial powers and the waves of modernization prompted a reactionary response, a revivalist movement that sought to safeguard traditional Islamic values. In the 18th century, Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab emerged as a key figure, advocating for a return to the fundamentals of Islam. His alliance with the House of Saud laid the groundwork for the establishment of the first Saudi state and the propagation of Wahhabism, a puritanical interpretation of Islam. Moving into the 20th century, Sayyid Qutb, an Egyptian intellectual, became a significant influencer of Islamic fundamentalist thought. Qutb's writings, particularly Milestones, articulated a vision of society governed by strict adherence to Sharia law, emphasizing the need for a comprehensive Islamic revolution. The historical trajectory of Islamic fundamentalism is shaped by the responses of these influential figures to the challenges posed by external forces and the quest for a perceived purity of Islamic principles. Ideological foundations. Islamic fundamentalism derives its ideological foundations from a meticulous and literal interpretation of sacred Islamic texts, notably the Quran and Hadith. Emphasizing a return to what is perceived as the unadulterated purity of early Islam, this literalism serves as the cornerstone of fundamentalist thought. The belief in a direct and uncompromising adherence to the scriptures shapes the worldview of Islamic fundamentalist movements, influencing their stance on various societal aspects. Central to this ideological framework is a rejection of cultural syncretism. Fundamentalists assert a steadfast commitment to preserving what they consider the authentic teachings of Islam, resisting external influences that may dilute or compromise their interpretation of religious principles. This rejection often results in a conservative approach towards cultural practices, emphasizing a return to perceived traditional norms. At the core of Islamic fundamentalist ideologies is the ardent quest for the establishment of an Islamic state governed by Sharia law. This aspiration, shared among various fundamentalist movements, reflects a desire to create a society guided solely by Islamic principles. The implementation of Sharia law is seen as essential to achieving a social and political order that aligns with their interpretation of Islamic teachings, emphasizing moral and legal codes derived directly from religious sources. In essence, the ideological foundations of Islamic fundamentalism intertwine scriptural literalism, resistance to cultural syncretism, and the pursuit of a state governed by Sharia law. Understanding these underpinnings is crucial for comprehending the motivations and actions of Islamic fundamentalist movements on the global stage. Political manifestations. Islamic fundamentalism's political manifestations are vividly illustrated by the fervent pursuit of establishing Islamic states, often governed by a strict interpretation of Sharia law. Notable groups, such as the Taliban in Afghanistan and Boko Haram in Nigeria, serve as poignant examples of endeavors to implement and enforce their version of Islamic governance. The Taliban, for instance, sought to create an Islamic emirate in Afghanistan during their rule, emphasizing a stringent application of Sharia law. This political dimension of Islamic fundamentalism raises challenging questions regarding the compatibility of religious doctrine with modern governance systems. The tension between theocracy and secular governance, between religious authority and democratic principles, becomes particularly pronounced. The attempts by fundamentalist groups to intertwine religious doctrines with political structures evoke debates about the feasibility of harmonizing deeply rooted religious beliefs with the diverse demands of contemporary societies. The establishment of Islamic states by fundamentalist groups not only affects the internal dynamics of these countries but also reverberates globally. It prompts discussions on the broader implications for international relations, human rights, and the delicate balance between respecting religious autonomy and safeguarding fundamental freedoms. As the political manifestations of Islamic fundamentalism continue to shape the geopolitical landscape, understanding and addressing these complex intersections remain critical for fostering global stability and coexistence. Social impacts. The profound social impacts of Islamic fundamentalism extend across multiple facets of daily life, shaping societal norms and dynamics. Gender roles, in particular, undergo significant transformation, with fundamentalist interpretations often reinforcing traditional and conservative perspectives on women's roles within the family and society. This can result in restrictions on women's participation in the public sphere, affecting their access to education and employment opportunities. Education becomes a focal point in societies influenced by Islamic fundamentalism, as curricula are often tailored to align with strict religious interpretations. This can lead to limitations on academic freedom and diversity of thought, potentially hindering critical thinking and the exploration of alternative perspectives. The impact on education is not only confined to content but may also affect the accessibility of education for certain groups, particularly women and minorities. Cultural practices within communities influenced by Islamic fundamentalism may experience a shift towards more conservative interpretations, emphasizing adherence to perceived traditional norms. This can lead to the marginalization of individuals or groups whose practices diverge from the prescribed cultural expectations. The tension between individual freedoms and religious orthodoxy emerges as a recurring theme in such societies. Striking a balance between the preservation of cultural and religious values and the recognition of individual rights and freedoms becomes a complex challenge. Negotiating this delicate balance is crucial for fostering inclusive and tolerant societies that accommodate diverse perspectives while respecting the principles of religious faith. In essence, the social impacts of Islamic fundamentalism are multifaceted, influencing gender dynamics, educational systems, and cultural practices. Understanding these dynamics is essential for engaging in meaningful dialogue on the intersections between religious beliefs and societal structures, with a view towards fostering societies that respect diversity and uphold fundamental human rights. Global jihadism. The emergence of global jihadism, exemplified by organizations such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS, represents a notable extension of Islamic fundamentalism onto the international stage. These groups transcend geographical boundaries, aspiring not only to establish Islamic states but also to carry out acts of terrorism on a global scale. The motivations behind such actions are deeply rooted in a radical interpretation of Islam that justifies violence as a means to achieve ideological objectives. The transnational nature of these jihadist groups complicates the landscape of global security. Their ability to recruit and radicalize individuals, often facilitated by online platforms, poses a significant and evolving challenge. The Internet serves as a powerful tool for disseminating extremist ideologies, connecting like-minded individuals, and coordinating activities, making counter-terrorism efforts increasingly complex. Addressing global jihadism requires international collaboration, intelligence sharing, and efforts to counter the online propaganda that fuels radicalization. Additionally, understanding the socio-political contexts that contribute to the appeal of these extremist ideologies is crucial for developing comprehensive strategies aimed at preventing the recruitment and radicalization of individuals susceptible to the allure of global jihadism. The fight against this phenomenon goes beyond military responses, necessitating a holistic approach that addresses root causes and promotes global cooperation to ensure a more secure and stable world. Challenges to pluralism. Islamic fundamentalism's unwavering commitment to a rigid interpretation of religious doctrine poses significant challenges to pluralism and religious diversity. Minorities within Muslim-majority countries, as well as non-Muslim communities, may encounter discrimination or persecution due to the strict adherence to fundamentalist ideologies. This tension between upholding the principles of religious freedom and preserving perceived Islamic values places governments in a delicate position. The challenge lies in striking a balance that respects the diversity of beliefs and practices while safeguarding the core tenets of Islamic faith. Governments in these contexts face the task of fostering inclusive societies that celebrate religious pluralism without compromising the fundamental principles of Islam. Successfully navigating this delicate balance requires nuanced policies, open dialogue, and a commitment to upholding human rights to ensure the coexistence of diverse religious communities within the broader Muslim-majority context. Responses and counterterrorism. In the face of the threat posed by Islamic fundamentalism, The international community has implemented diverse strategies, ranging from military intervention and diplomatic initiatives to comprehensive counterterrorism measures. These responses aim to mitigate the impact of extremist ideologies and safeguard global security. Military interventions, while at times successful in disrupting terrorist networks, have raised concerns about civilian casualties and long-term stability. Diplomatic efforts play a crucial role in addressing the root causes of Islamic fundamentalism, involving dialogue and collaboration between nations to promote stability and prevent radicalization. However, the complexity of geopolitical dynamics often complicates diplomatic initiatives. Counterterrorism measures encompass a wide array of strategies, including intelligence sharing, border control enhancements, and efforts to counter online radicalization. Yet, the efficacy of these measures remains a subject of ongoing debate. Striking a delicate balance between addressing security concerns and upholding human rights is a persistent challenge in formulating effective and ethical responses to the multifaceted issue of Islamic fundamentalism. Developing nuanced and context-specific approaches is essential to navigate the complexities of counterterrorism while preserving the principles of justice and individual freedoms. In conclusion, understanding Islamic fundamentalism requires a nuanced examination of its historical roots, ideological foundations, political manifestations, social impacts, and global implications. While it is essential to address the security challenges posed by extremist groups, it is equally important to engage with the diverse voices within the Muslim world that advocate for a more inclusive and moderate interpretation of Islam. Balancing the principles of religious freedom, human rights, and security is a complex task that requires thoughtful and collaborative efforts on a global scale.